AC Butch here, and let's talk action. Yeah, let's talk the motion picture that almost happened and still might. Well, what it's about is the golden era of action bowling. That's the 1960s, Brooklyn, New York, specifically my home alleys, Avenue M Bowl. That's where it took action to the next level. Let me tell you, 7 days a week, well, at least 6 nights a week. We had action for a few years straight. Uh, we'd start about 12 o'clock at night after the leagues, and many a night, all 28 lanes were going. Big name bowlers, unknown bowlers. The place was full of Shylocks and bookies and street people and lawyers and bankers and accountants, people that just love to watch some of the greatest bowlers in the world and bet on them. The two guys that really brought the big time action to Avenue M, you see, Fishface Howie Noble, the owner. The owner one day got the idea to back them, and because they were good, let me tell you, Mac and Stoop were great action bowlers. And this way, anybody that would come to Avenue M knew they could make some decent money. That's for sure, because the house was behind them, and it started. It started off slow and grew and grew and grew until until there was so much action, the sugar plums were dancing in my head, and I had to see. You see, I had a very strict father, and I wasn't allowed out late at night. No, not like the other guys. No, not me. I had to stay home. But this night I did it, and when I walked, I mean, my insides were shaking. The bowling alley was about 7 blocks from my home, and just thinking about what might be, I actually, my legs were tingling. They were tingling when I turned the corner, and you see, Avenue M was on McDonald's Avenue. There you had the overhead L train, and it was a whole picture within itself. And here it was, like 2 o'clock in the morning. The lights were bright as anything on the outside. Cars parked and double parked all over the place. I actually couldn't believe the vision. Now, as I walked through the doors, it was like, oh, I just started and went to action heaven. Nothing, people, and I mean nothing, was ever like this. Right now, I think I'm getting ready to do a Kickstarter project. If you ever heard of it, it's a fantastic thing. And this is really the kind of finance, putting the whole thing back together again and getting it going. But anyway, let me tell you the story. It's about action bowling. It shows the interest that there was in it. This is going back to the late 90s. I had a cable TV show that was actually on, well, it was an independent type thing on Time Warner and Cablevision at the time. My partner was Robert Santa. The name of the show was Hole in the Wall. And we did a lot of things about Brooklyn, and we were getting a nice little following. Anyway, one day I get this idea to do an interview with Mac and Stoop. I mean, these are two legends in bowling from Avenue M Bowl, maybe the biggest house in the world for a while. And I stayed there. I lived there. Avenue M was my house for action. So I put the interview together. We did it at our studio, and I put it on. I put it on the show. And let me tell you, the day after it aired, I actually thought this was a joke call. I thought just a prank. Somebody was pulling my leg. I get a phone call, and the guy says his name is Joe Rivette, and that he's from New Line Cinema. He caught the show. He said, I'd like you to come down, and let's talk about it. So anyway, I contacted Robert. So we head into New York, and we go to New Line Cinema on 57th Street. And we go upstairs. We're going up in the elevator, and I said, this is never going to happen. We get off the elevator, and right away I see posters on the wall, and the name produced by Joe Rivette. We go, maybe, nah. It's somebody just using his name. So anyway, we go over to the desk, and the girl there, I tell her, Well, I give her my name. She picks up the phone, she calls into the office, and she looks at us and she says, Mr. Rivette will be right out. And Joe comes walking out, shakes our hands, and he just says, listen, why don't we go downstairs and have a little lunch and talk? Fine. We get in the elevator, and right there is part of the building is Brooklyn Diner, which really seems strange, the Brooklyn Diner. Okay, we go in there, I order this big gigantic hot dogs, and Joe proceeds to tell us how interested he really is in this, that this whole concept, he loves it. He absolutely loved it. He wanted me to give him some type of an outline of what I thought we could put into it. So anyway, we're talking. We leave, me and Robert, we're on a high. I go home and I write this outline. And it kind of it kind of was pretty good, I think. So I get it to Joe. He totally loved the outline, and we had another meeting, and he said, "This is serious. This is very serious, and I think we're going to do it." And we started talking about all things like, well, he would be the producer. About getting the right directors. And Robert had mentioned that a good friend of his, Sal Stapile, has a deal with New Line Cinema, that his motion picture, Gravesend, won the Cannes Film Festival. Oliver Stone was involved in it, and maybe we could get him that. He's a kid from Brooklyn, grew up in the streets, knows about gambling, always wanted to do something like this. And we got the okay to contact him. So Sal, now this is how crazy it gets. Sal gets the phone call from Robert and says, I'm flying in. I want to talk to you guys. This really sounds interesting. And Sal was in the next day. And here I go to Skinflint's, and it's me, Robert, and Sal. And as a matter of fact, I had brought a recorder along because I couldn't believe this was really going on. But anyway, Sal goes on to tell us he really wants to do it. He had already read the outline that I had done for Joe Rivette, and he said, you guys have no idea. I've always wanted to do something like this about gambling, about the fields, the streets of Brooklyn, because action was going to have a lot of it. I mean, I'm talking about the crap games, the track, the sports betting, but of course the bowling action was the main theme of the whole thing. And he said, I want to do this. So anyway, we set up a meeting for him and Joe Rivette. They meet, they get along fantastically. I mean, everything is like a go. There's no two ways about it. And we're already talking about what kind of front money I would get. And the main thing is that Sal wanted to write the screenplay and be the director. But Sal considered himself mainly a writer. And he did a 40-page workup on it. And that was it. Until we get a phone call from Joe Rivette. And he really sounded a little sad. He said, guys, I really got bad news for you. He goes, for certain reasons we can't really go into, there's a lot of interest in this, but it's got to be put on the shelf right now. And believe it or not, I finally got the reason out of him. And Rounders had come out, which we all know is a fantastic movie. It's a cult thing. I mean, it's the best of its kind. But it didn't do as well at the box office as everybody expected. And this made the top brass, New Line Cinema, shy off a little bit. They kind of put this in the same grouping as Rounders. From New York to gambling. This here would be bowling instead of cards. And and it scared them. It actually said, listen, this is still live. It's just going to be put on the shelf. And now it's time. It's time for me to take it off the shelf and put something together and get this thing going again. See you at the theater.